Hello, everybody. Hello, and welcome to Leadership. This is episode 4, I believe, of this series on leadership. Thank you for being here, and a very good morning to you. If you are here to learn how to succeed in business, maybe this is for a side hustle, maybe this is for an entrepreneurial venture, maybe this is to assist you in your career job, or just to give you something interesting to talk about, possibly in a job interview to a hiring manager or an executive if you're networking, you have come to the right place, because we're going to be talking about how to be an executive, how to be someone who knows what to do when you're steering a business unit. That's what this is about. And before we get started, I want to, first of all, thank my YouTube channel members, my super thanks donors, and all my Patreons for supporting me. You guys are awesome. And thank you to everybody who is here right now. There are 13 of you guys here. Thank you for joining me. I have a very exciting announcement. Well, it's very exciting for me. Hopefully you guys will feel the same way. As I mentioned last week, I'm coming out with a third course. They're on the screen right now, so you can see. First, there was the Get Hired course, which is that way, down there. Then there was the $100 MBA course. And now there's going to be this one right here, Write Like a Professional course. I was hoping to have the website up by today. It's created, but it hasn't gone live yet. That'll happen in the next couple of days or so. Hopefully by next Monday, by the next episode, I will have the link up for that. But the exciting announcement is that I was asked by several of you guys, can you buy all 3 courses? And presumably people are asking always about a discount. Yes, you can. Here's what I've decided, okay? If you go and buy 2 courses, or if you have bought 2 of the courses, and you go and you've obviously paid for them, and if you go and register for the third one and send me an email, I will give you the third one for free. That's the announcement. So this applies in arrears. So if you've already bought 2 of my courses, I know some people have. If you've got the Get Hired course and the $100 MBA course, drop me an email. If you go and register for the Write Like a Professional course, I will enroll you in that one for free of charge, and any combination thereof. Okay, so that's the big announcement. And I apologize for the delay. I thought I would have the page up today, but I don't. Lots of work on my plate these days, and I'm trying to juggle everything. So hopefully you guys will be patient while I get my act together and get that thing happening. Yes, so today the title of this episode is called, I believe, The Strategy That Leads to Profitability. Okay, and this is, for me, a super exciting subject. I love talking about this stuff. I don't often get a chance to talk about it freely to the public, and I'm kind of puzzled about that. Maybe I just don't make the topic come alive or something, but I think a lot of people should be interested in this, because this is basically the sum total of what I've learned about how to have a hit on your hands. Okay, what are the things that you should do to, number one, know if you have an idea that will go somewhere, if it's like a business idea, if it's something that you should put your time and effort and possibly money into. Okay, that's number one. Number two is, if you have a job where you are a manager or something, you're a supervisor of something, supervisor level, I don't know if you can use this stuff. You probably can. I'm sure you can. I think you can use it at all levels, but it'll be more pronounced if you're a manager of some kind. Okay, because managers are faced with decisions. What should I do? Should I focus on doing work quickly? Should I focus on doing work to a higher standard? Should I focus on doing things cheaply? Should I try to cut my costs? Should I try and invest in sales, or should I try and invest in operations? Or, like, when is enough marketing? When is too much marketing? These are the kinds of decisions that you face when you're leading a business unit. If you're trying to sell something, it's not that easy to know what to do. It feels like you're being pulled in every direction. Everything needs more time. Everything needs more money. Everything needs more effort. But you can't do everything. You have to pick and choose. So what should you pick and choose? What's the priority of the things that you should focus on first because they matter more, right? This is something that you encounter in the real world. And those of you that have been in this position before, you know what I'm talking about. If ever you have tried to start a business, even on like a very small scale, you've tried to, I don't know, you opened a lemonade stand when you were a kid. I don't know, anything like that, right? You'll know what I'm talking about. Should you make a bigger sign? Should you work longer hours and operate it longer? Should you do more marketing? Should you put more money into the quality of your lemonade? I mean, what should you do? What will lead to more sales and in particular, a higher profit? Because as we know, just because you sell something a lot doesn't necessarily mean you're going to make a profit if the price isn't high enough, right? All kinds of trade-offs here, lots of moving parts. What do we do? Well, this is what we're going to be talking about today. Hopefully you find this interesting and that's why you're here. Because I tell you, I love this stuff. I really wish that I knew a better way of packaging it and selling it to the public, like this kind of information, because it tends to get a bit technical and it tends to only really interest MBA types. So, which is weird because if ever you want to sell something or add an income stream, you will hopefully be interested in this. Okay. So I wrote myself a couple of notes here, things I wanted to cover. There is a chat box, so you can ask me questions if you wish, but I have several things I'd like to go through today. Hopefully you will come with me. Okay, and the first place I wanted to start is the 3 determinants of profitability. Okay, if something's going to be a success, what are the 3 things that have to be there in order? Okay, like what's the most important, second most important, and third most important? Excuse me. Also, newsflash, I am under the weather. I've had the flu or a cold for about a week. That's one of the reasons why my course isn't ready. Just haven't had as much energy as I normally do. So unfortunately, you have to bear with me. But the 3 determinants of business unit profitability. Okay, so this applies if you have an idea for your side hustle or you have an idea for starting your own business, no matter what type of business, okay, this applies. This applies universally across the board. And I just want to say that all the things I'm going to mention in this live stream, all the principles, they don't come from me, okay? These have come from, I don't know who they come from. They come from the experts, people that have written books about it, people that have PhDs in management science, people that work at universities, people that have, that have led businesses and done a lot of publishing of their own business philosophy. And this is like not flavor of the month stuff. This is like old stuff, like, the greats like Henry Ford and people like that. Okay, so all of this, you can look it up. And in particular, if anyone has done anything to bottle and sell this type of content that I'm going to give you excerpts from today, it's the Boston Consulting Group in the United States. They have, if you're not aware of them, there are a couple of big management consulting firms in the United States. McKinsey is one of them, Boston Consulting Group. BCG is the other one. And this is in particular something that BCG has I believe they've stitched all this stuff together. Okay. So you can always read more or learn more about it from there if you wish. Okay. Now without any further ado, let's talk about this. Okay. The 3 determinants of profitability in order are market. Okay. Market, competitive position, and strategy. Let me explain. Okay. Number 1, market. Okay. Hopefully you guys know what market means. If you're not aware of this, let's start from the beginning. A group of producers, like a group of companies that make stuff, is called an industry. Okay. A group of customers or potential customers is called a market. So marketing is the study of groups of customers. Okay. That's what the field of study of marketing is, right? So you have to have a market, which means a group of potential customers that are interested in the type of thing that you're going to be producing, whatever that is. Okay. If your market doesn't exist or it's not there, it kind of doesn't matter what you do from this point on. You will probably not achieve profitability. Okay. So that's what this is saying. Number one, you have to have a market waiting for you. Okay. It has to exist. It has to be there. If your market is shrinking, or you used to have a market, but it's not really there anymore, it's going to be pretty hard to make a profit. That's what this principle is saying. Okay, that's the most important thing. And you notice that this isn't dependent on anything you've done yet. You could be the world's biggest business genius, or you could be a complete amateur fool. It doesn't matter. This does not depend on you. Okay? Now, we've seen this. For example, I remember 20 years ago or whenever it was that the music business was basically in decline. People used to sell music recordings on CD or whatever. And, it was a big business. Like there was billions of dollars tied up in this. And, the internet came and file sharing came, and then the music business, at least the selling of recordings, kind of just ended, right? Like it just went on this nosedive for a period of like 5 years, and then the whole thing was gone, right? And I remember at the time, these companies, like record companies, they were panicking and they didn't know what to do. And you had all these big brains coming in with all these plans of how they're going to fix it. They're going to, change their strategy and make a bunch of changes, and then supposedly that will work. Well, none of it worked. It didn't matter what your strategy was, didn't matter who you got in there making the decisions, because the market was drying up. Okay. We saw that also for companies like Yahoo, right? Kind of similar type thing. Tracy Williams is here, says, I'm back. Hey, Tracy. And Michelle O says, hey, Bill, how you doing? Glad to catch you live. Well, thank you for being here. Also like Yahoo and companies like that. I remember Yahoo, they got a series of I believe they got a series of like high profile CEOs to come in and, try and turn that company around because it was being overtaken by their competitors. I think it was Google and, Microsoft or something like this. And then, Yahoo was kind of in decline. They were there at the beginning of the internet, and then they were sort of surpassed by other companies like Google and things. So they got, what's her name? Melissa Meyer from Google to come in and be their star CEO. And before that, I think they had, I can't remember her name, this woman that was like really, really gruff and aggressive. She had a potty mouth. She would drop F-bombs like in every sentence. I can't remember her name, but they had her for a while, and then they had Melissa Meyer. Didn't matter because the market was drying up for what Yahoo was selling. There wasn't any demand for it anymore. It doesn't matter what you do, doesn't matter how smart you are if there are no customers that want that thing. Okay, so the number one most important thing to determine if you're going to be profitable at doing something is there a market? Is there a big market for it? Okay, number one. Let's use an example that we're going to use to run through this, and that'll hopefully make this whole thing make sense. Let's take selling houses. Okay, I like this example because I think it illustrates it very well. Let's say you want to go into the business of building houses and selling them. Okay, you want to, borrow some money from a bank, buy some lots, some plots of land, borrow some more money, pay a bunch of contractors to build a house for you, and sell them. Okay, let's say that's your master plan. Okay, the number one determinant, like we said, is this going to make money? Is, first of all, is there a market? Do people want houses? Well, I think yes. I would say yes to that. People want houses. There is a market. There is a large market for that. Okay, and traditionally, this is what we've seen for people that build houses, right? There's a line stretched around the block of people with their wallets out that will pay you because they want a house and they understand that you have one to sell, right? Generally, that's been the case. So it passes the first test. There is a market, okay? Now we move on to the second factor, okay? The second factor that determines profitability. Okay, is this thing going to be profitable? And that is competitive position. Okay, now in the example of building houses as a business idea, let's say, what's your competitive position? Now, some people obviously have lots of money. They have access to a lot of cash so that they can pay for land, they can pay contractors. Okay. They also have lots of strong relationships with banks. They have strong relationships with lots of contractors, right? They know these people. They've been working with these people for years. They know exactly how much to pay them. They know what their schedule is like. They know how to deal with them. They know where to find them. They know all the rules, right? So their competitive position would be pretty strong, right? Now you take a new player, okay? A new player like me. Or you. We have this brilliant idea. We don't know anything about houses, but our plan is we're going to buy some, we're going to buy some lots, and then we're going to pay all the contractors to the subtrades to build a house on it, and then we're going to sell the house, and then we're going to use that money to pay off our costs, and we're going to make a profit. Right? That's our plan. Maybe you and we don't have access to land. Maybe we don't have relationships with contractors. We don't know who these people are, where they are, how to contact them, how much money they charge. We don't know any of that, right? So our competitive position in that market would be weak, right? Maybe in your town, you might find that, the city, the government, who has final say on what is done with land, they have decided that they're going to sort of divvy up the land between, say, 5 of the big builders in their city, okay? So those 5 builders get the plots of land, and everyone else is shut out, right? So if you are shut out of that, and you're not one of those 5 big builders, you don't have a very strong competitive position, right? So in this case, this business idea passes the first test. There is a market, but it fails the second test. Our competitive position is not very good. Okay? That's the second most important thing that you need in order for this to succeed. Okay? In that order. It doesn't matter that if you were a builder, let's say, it doesn't matter that you have access to land and houses if there's no market, right? If there's no customers that want a house. Maybe apartments are all the rage. Maybe the city is just not cool and nobody wants to live here. It doesn't matter how much access to land and how much relationships you have with subtrades. Your competitive position could be very strong, but you're still not going to be profitable if there's no market. So market comes first, then competitive position. Those are the first 2 things. But remember, we said there's 3. There's the top 3 things that determine profitability. So the third one is strategy. And strategy in this case, in this sense, is a blanket term that I'm going to use to refer to anything you do, okay? The first 2 things we talked about, market and competitive position, they really have nothing to do with you. It's not dependent on anything you do. It depends on pre-existing conditions that you just sort of walk into in the business environment, right? It doesn't matter how hard you work if you don't have access to land and you don't have previous dealings with banks and subtrades, right? Okay, you have to have had that stuff in the past, and it's already the case, right? It's not dependent on anything you do from this point on. Okay, so the third thing, strategy, that's everything you do. Okay, so let's say you're a genius. You're a business genius. You're the world's best salesperson. You're the world's best finance person. You're the world's best operations person. You know construction like the back of your hand, right? I don't understand that expression. Like, I guess you look at the back of your hand like this. Looks like I'm going to slap someone. right? You could be like a construction genius. You might have a revolutionary new way of building a house, right? Well, that still doesn't do you any good if there's no market and you're shut out of even getting any land to build a house on, or subtrades will not work with you, right? So those are the three things in order. So strategy is the third one. That's anything you do, how you run your business, okay? The quality of the decisions you make. Maybe you hired all the right people. Maybe you got really good deals on stuff, right? And yeah, like strategy, okay, Tracy Williams says, strategy equals execution. Yeah, kind of, because it includes not just the execution, how well you put your plan into effect. It includes the plan itself, how smart you are, and if your plan was of a good quality or not. Maybe you had a stupid plan, right? Now, I've had some interesting experiences with real estate over the years, and when I was younger, it was kind of an eye-opening experience, not working in it, but dealing with that industry, because I've never had people lie to my face quite like they do in that business. I mean, it was really an eye-opening experience. In my experience, there are a lot of home builders, house builders, and they all pretty much operate the same way. They operate in the sense that they don't have repeat business. Every customer you deal with, you will never have to deal with that customer ever again, right? That means you can lie to them, you can cheat them, you can double cross them, you can make sure that they have absolutely no way to contact you, even though they've paid you hundreds of thousands of dollars and they've trusted you to like build them a house or something. They can engage in practices like this. Not to mention, they can not understand basic business principles. They can be not very intelligent to begin with, and they can double cross pretty much everyone they deal with. Now, normally in most businesses, those would be considerable disadvantages. You would be setting yourself up for long-term failure if you behaved like that. But in construction, you can kind of get away with it because all of the construction companies operate the same way. So you are not at a disadvantage because you operate like this. This is what I found out in some dealings that I had in the past. And, so you're not dealing with very bright people. You're not dealing with very ethical people, but all the businesses operate that way. And you know what? They still make a ton of money. And we know why. Because the market is there. They have a strong competitive position. And their strategy is not great, but no one else is really doing anything better. So people got to get their houses somewhere, right? So it's very profitable. You essentially have a little bit of an oligopoly on, in that business, in whatever city you're in, because there's only a certain number of builders there. So anyway, I mean, that's just been my personal experiences, but hopefully that illustrates the concept, right? Number one, you got to have the market. Number two, you got to have the competitive position to be able to exploit it. And number three, then it depends on everything you do. Okay. So this changes things. If you're going to evaluate a business idea, whether it's, you're wanting to start up a business or do a side hustle, or you're working in your career job and they've given you managerial responsibility for the growth of something, right? And you have to decide how you're going to do it. This can act like a litmus test to tell you, okay, is this going to be successful or not? Okay. The conventional wisdom is that you can take anything and work really hard at it and maybe get somewhere. And although, working hard at something helps, if there's no market and you at a huge disadvantage in your competitive position, it may not matter how much work you put into it. You can't make a success of it, right? So it tells you, maybe that battle is not worth fighting. Let's find something else that is, right? That's worth our time and has a much higher likelihood of it going somewhere. Okay, so that's kind of the first thing I wanted to cover today. Hopefully everybody understands. Now, listen, I encourage you to test this. Don't take my word for this stuff. Just test it. Look at the real world. Look at things you see in the news. Look at things you see, in history books, what people have attempted to do, whether it succeeded or failed, and apply this test and see if it holds up. I mean, it does. It does for everything I've done. And yeah, so the implication is that you can use this going forward to evaluate business opportunities or ideas that you might want to pursue. Okay, let's go over to the chat just for a second. I see Stan Boris is here. Hi, boss, says Stan Boris. Hi, Stan. Thank you for being here. Stan the man. And Tracy Williams says yes. I think that's yes to the last thing I said a moment ago. So good. Yeah, like once again, I did not come up with this. I can't take credit for any of the principles I'm going to be going over today. Like a lot of business people, I've stood on the shoulders of giants. I mean, this is stuff that real experts and pioneers have worked out long ago, and this has been put to the test. And more recently, starting from like the second half of the 20th century, they've done lots of data studies proving these principles, or at least proving them as much as you can in a social science, just basically finding that generally across the board, they tend to hold up. Okay, but I mean, anything that involves humans and psychology is prone to some margin of error. It depends how you look at these things, right? Okay, so maybe start thinking about this, thinking like this, and hopefully it'll help. Okay, Tracy says, I'm testing my business ideas against this framework. Okay, good, yeah. Now, here's something that comes directly from a study called PIMS. I can't remember what the acronym stands for. It's like Profitability Impact Management Study, something like that. This was published a long time ago. This was published in the 60s, and the company GE, General Electric, they did a data study starting in the 60s, and I don't fully understand it, but that whole endeavor was like acquired by another company. I believe it was the Boston Consulting Group in the United States, and they continued the study where they looked at businesses like of all sizes, of all types. They looked at big businesses, small businesses. They looked at businesses in like every industry there was. They looked at businesses that were conglomerates, which meant that the business actually had units that did many, many different things that were unrelated. And also businesses that are what we call pure play, which means that they only do one thing. They're only in one business, right? So they looked at all of these companies, and they had their financial performance because, if nothing else, their income tax returns have been filed, right? So you can go back and you can look up, it's public record, how much these companies make, especially if they're publicly traded companies. Anyway, they got all this data, and they wanted to try and find out if you know what the strategy of the company is. Okay, you know what they're trying to do and their plan. You can look at their financial performance and see if it worked or not. Okay, and then you can look at all companies across all industries and see if there's any commonality. Companies that tend to try to do this seem to succeed in terms of financial performance, whereas companies that across all industries that try to do this other thing, they tend to fail. It tends to fail. Okay, so that's what they were looking for. They were looking for, is there some general rules we can set that a certain strategy will tend to work as opposed to another strategy will tend not to work? This is what they were looking for. Okay, but they did this completely with numbers. It wasn't based on figuring out some complex idea and the reasoning behind it. It was simply looking at financial performance. Okay, what they tried to do and what the results were. And this is some of the data they gleaned from it. Okay, they published it in, I think it was a series of books, certainly one book called PIMS that came out a long time ago. And it's since then been picked up by the Boston Consulting Group, and they use this in their ability to assist businesses when businesses bring them in and say, can you help us be more profitable? So I'm gonna say that in a second, but let's see here. Stan Boris says, boss, how to contrast profitability with uncertainty? There's so much mess around. Can't predict the figures in long perspective. Okay, well, yeah. So you're trying to predict figures. Well, this is the thing, right? This is what I was saying. Like anybody who's been at the helm of a business unit, you know that it's quite hard to do because you feel like you have to do everything. You have to put money and effort and improvement into everything. And the problem is that you can't. You can only afford to put money and effort into one or two things. So the question is, which one or two things should you do? Should you work on, more sales effort? Should you work on better product quality? Should you work on more efficiency? Should you work on like training your employees, to do cross-functional things? Instead, should you work on, streamlining endeavors like Lean and Six Sigma, that sort of take what you have and make it, more efficient? What should you do? You can't do everything at once, right? Maybe you should, try and upsell your existing customers to new products. Maybe you should get into new businesses. You make up new products. Maybe there's more potential there. Like you could do all these different things, right? But you have to pick and choose. What's the priority? And that's what we're talking about. Okay. So I'm going to give you an excerpt from this material that I described called PIMS. And this is called the 5 factors that lead to profitability. Okay. This doesn't come from me. This comes from PIMS. This comes from essentially the Boston Consulting Group. And we're going to focus on the first 2. I'll tell you what they are. Okay. Just as a sort of summary, and then we'll get into how it works. Okay. The number one thing that results in profitability, the thing that you should give the highest priority to in anything that you do across the board in businesses, big and small, no matter what industry you're in, number one is quality. Okay. That's what they found. But quality in a very specific way. We're going to talk about that in a second. The second most important thing that resulted in profitability was market share. Okay. Now, hopefully, you know what market share means. That means of the market, of all the customers out there that are buying this product or service. Okay. How much of the market do you have? There are big players and there are small players. Okay. So if you are a big player, you're the 800-pound gorilla in a certain business. Okay. You will be more profitable, all things being equal, than a small player. Okay. That's what they found. And they have precise figures on this, which I will give you in a second. Okay. The third most important thing was high investment. And they mean that in the sense of capital intensity. Some businesses are really cheap to operate. For example, an HR company, you need a desk, a phone, and possibly an office. And you could be an HR firm. You could bring in millions of dollars a year. Okay. Other businesses, in order to make that same amount of money, you have to spend a lot to buy a lot of hardware. Think of an oil refining plant. In order to make the money that they make, they have to invest in billions of dollars of hardware. Facilities that take up like tons of land, tons of energy, right? Not everybody can play in that business. I don't have $5 billion in my pocket to buy into that business and get started. You know what I mean? But if I really wanted to, I could start an HR firm. I got a computer and a phone, right? So that's what they mean by capital intensity. Okay, so that's the third factor that determines profitability, the third most important thing. The bottom line is that businesses that are less capital intensive, like the HR company, they tend to be more profitable, all things being equal. Okay. Specifically, that means that if you're going to spend $1 billion on creating an oil refining company, or you could spend $1 billion on creating an HR firm. You know how big your HR firm would be to have cost you $1 billion? It says that the HR firm will be more profitable. It'll make more money than the oil refining firm, even though the two cost the same amount to set up. That's what it's saying. Okay. The fourth factor was cash flows. Okay. The firm with the highest cash flows tends to be more profitable. accountants will care about this. Most people don't understand what the difference is between cash flows and profit, but if you're an accountant, you know what I'm talking about, then you'll understand that. And finally, the fifth one is vertical integration. We're not going to talk about the last three, okay? We're not going to talk about vertical integration. We're not going to talk about cash flows versus profits. We're going to talk about the first two items, which are quality and market share, okay? Because this is what really affects everyday people. If you're thinking of starting up a side hustle, or you're thinking of quitting your job to start your own business, okay, these are things that are going to be, hopefully, that should be of huge interest to you, okay? Because they're going to inform you what you need to do to make this a success, to have your stuff take off, to have it be a hit, okay? For people to love your stuff so much that they even have word of mouth on it. They tell all their friends, okay? Or the business to business equivalent of that, right? Okay, so let's get started. Here we go. I'm drinking Red Bull today. I need it to keep my energy level up. Especially when you're under the weather with a cold/flu. Okay, here we go. So what was number one? Number one was product quality. Okay, our product or service quality. This applies to whatever it is you're doing. Okay, whatever you do is either going to be a product or a service or some combination thereof. Okay. And the most important thing that's going to determine how profitable your enterprise will be doing that is what your quality is. Okay. Now, let's talk about what I mean by the word quality here. This is actually not as intuitive as you think. When people talk about quality in the world of business, they usually talk about something called conformance quality. And that is how closely a product or service meets a specification. Okay. I used to be the head of quality for a company. We had like an ISO quality program. I'm a black belt in lean and a master black belt in lean and a master black belt in Six Sigma. Those are some of the, I don't know if you can see, those are some of the certificates and stuff I have on my wall. You see the other one there? Anyway, there's one right behind this blue box over there. Anyway, so those are all to do with quality, conformance quality. Okay, so how reliably your finished product or service meets a certain specification. Okay, when people say the word quality, usually that's what they're talking about. That's not what I mean in this sense. Okay. Tracy Williams says, "Hope you feel better soon." Thank you, Tracy. I appreciate that. I'm on the mend, which is great. That's why I hope to kick ass when it comes to getting this course done, my writing course. Okay, now this is a different type of quality, okay? The technical term for this quality is customer relative perceived quality. That's quite a mouthful. Let me explain, okay? Here's what you need to do, okay? You could either do this literally or you could do it in a kind of a roundabout way. You go to your customers, okay, or your potential customers, and you say to them, okay, I want you to write down in order of how good you think they are, the top 10 companies or producers of this particular product. Okay. So let's say, I don't know, I'm just picking this stuff at random. I haven't planned this out. Let's say cars, automobiles, right? You want to buy a car. You go to, let's say you want to be in the business of producing cars. Okay, because you can do that in your garage, right? Actually, now that I say this, some people can. They can. You got some pretty savvy mechanics around that can actually build cars. They can fabricate all the the metal. They even might have a smattering of engineering, and they can design stuff and 3D print a lot of stuff. Anyway, let's say you want to be in the business of cars, right? Go to the typical person that would buy a car, whoever that is. If you're producing a car for families, soccer moms, or you're producing a car for racing enthusiasts, whoever your market is, okay? Let's say it's racing enthusiasts. Go to a bunch of those potential customers and say, write down on a piece of paper, in order of how good they are, the top 10 car manufacturers. And maybe some people will write something like, they'll start with I don't know, Lamborghini or something, Ferrari, Porsche, BMW, I don't know cars. And, they'll get down to Toyota, right? And then maybe towards the bottom, they'll get Datsun, DeLorean, this kind of thing, right? Now, what is that? That's what the customers perceive as who is the best quality, right? Now, quality, obviously, in this sense, each customer is going to have a different definition of what it means. Maybe some people care about speed, and that's what they care about the most. Maybe other people care about fuel economy. Maybe other people care about horsepower. Maybe other people care about driver comfort or safety. There's many conflicting elements here to how you judge a car, right? But what you're doing is you're going to your existing market, your potential customers, and you're saying, essentially your definition of what's best, write down in order, okay, the best companies, the best producers of that product or service, right? And let's pretend that even though you talk to, say, 1,000 people and their definition of quality was kind of slightly different between all of them, they all put, say, Lamborghini as number one, okay? Well, that's telling you something, okay? Whatever it is that your market considers important, they perceive Lamborghini as being top of the list, right? So that's what I talk about when I talk about customer relative perceived quality. So you understand where the word perceived comes from, right? Because it's everybody's got their own perception of what makes a car good. Now, it's relative quality because you're measuring one company against the other, right? You're not talking about absolute quality. You're talking about which one is better than, who is better than whom, right? That's what you're comparing here. Okay. So if all of the players are top notch, right? They all make a amazing vehicle, let's say, it's going to be pretty stiff competition, but you're still going to find out who's at the top and who's kind of lower down. Let's say most customers feel that most car makers are doing a terrible job, right? They're all kind of bad, but there's different grades of bad. But, among a bunch of bad companies, everybody agrees that, say, I don't know, Toyota would be the best or something like that, So this is where you get the metric customer relative perceived quality. That's the definition. Okay. Now, this metric, this is the most important metric to determine whether your idea is going to be a success. Okay. So let's say you're going to get into the car business. You've done some publicity. You ask your typical potential customer, write down the top 10 or the top 50, whatever, automobile producers. And then you look at where you are in that. And if you're towards the bottom, you got a problem. You're probably not going to be super profitable. If you can get yourself to get a higher standing, you start climbing the ladder in that list. Out of 10,000 people, instead of having an average of being number 27, now you're number 8. Your profitability will go way up. Okay. So hopefully everybody understands this metric. I've taken long enough to sort of explain it. Hopefully that makes sense. This is the single most important determinant of whether you're going to be profitable. Okay. And it also informs you what you need to do. Okay. Because if you're leading a business unit, you're thinking, okay, should I put more effort into sales? Should I hire more salespeople and do better marketing and, maybe do better advertising or whatever? Is that what I should be doing? Or should I be taking that money and improving the conformance quality of my product, the reliability, the performance, more features? Or should I be doing an in-depth study on, how efficient my operation is, and we should be trimming the fat, cutting the costs, being more efficient? Or should I not care about efficiency and instead I should just try and produce the cheapest car I possibly can so that I can lower the price below the price of my competitors and capture, some market share based on the fact that, we're the cheapest offering, right? you can pay $300,000 for a Ferrari or something, but you can pay $8,000 for one of my new cars, right? Is that the way to go? Like these are legitimate business questions. And the answer to all of those, okay, is basically, let's go back to this metric, customer relative perceived quality. How will it affect your standing in that metric? If you went to 1,000 customers and you said, where do you place us in a list of the top automobile producers, where would we be? Will we go up or down? And it's not always if you're talking about, let's say you're not doing race cars, instead you're doing like a family car, a sensible family car, like a minivan or something like that, or an SUV, it's not always going to be the highest performance vehicle. It's going to be on the top of the list. Maybe a lot of people like the really cheap minivan. Hey, it works. It lasts for at least 10 years, no problem. It's like, I don't know, $10,000. And, it's got a lot of features. Hey, that's my number one. That's what I always go to. It's giving the customers what they want, right? Now, maybe they don't want the right things, in your opinion. Well, you can try and re-educate them. It is possible, but it's highly likely that's not going to work, right? Instead, you kind of cater to what they're looking for. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. Now, there's some technical stuff that goes along with this. Here's some numbers, okay? This is what they found when they did data studies on this. They found that firms, like companies in the top 33% for quality, charge 5 to 6% higher price than the bottom 33% of firms. Excuse me. Okay, so you can make profits via premium pricing in the short term. That's kind of one aspect of this. So if you're perceived as being the best, right, you could charge more money for your product than your competitors could. They have to sell theirs at a discount to keep up with you in terms of quantity, right? Okay, so quality drives market expansion and higher market share because you got the best product, or it's perceived as being the best product. A great example of this is Apple. Now, I haven't been like a super huge fan of Apple over the years. I've had a few bad experiences with them. But one thing that I acknowledge is that they've done amazing marketing. Whether or not their phones and their other products are like the best, you got to admit that they've certainly created the perception of them being the best. They're certainly the coolest, right? So you can drive this many different ways, right? But quality basically allows you to charge higher prices, and that's the first half of profitability. So if you got the best product, you can either charge more money for it and make a profit that way, or you could keep your prices kind of the same and sell a higher quantity and make your money that way, right? That's the first half of profitability. Okay. The other aspect of this that enters into it is that if you have better quality, your quality goes up, your volume of sales can go up, and that can drive economies of scale. So you also get more efficient, all things being equal. Okay, so that's another way this stuff can pay off. So that's the first determinant of profitability, the most important determinant of profitability. Hopefully everybody is following this and that it makes sense. Okay, let's talk about the number two. We're not going to talk about all five. We're just going to talk about the number two. And that's market share. Okay. Now here's some data that they found. Okay. Let's see here. 43 smaller business units with a market, that means they have a market share of less than 10%. So they're small players. Okay. They found that their return on investment, okay, was, isn't it awesome when you can't read your own notes? That's highly professional. I don't normally get this, but that's where I am right now, and I'm damn proud. Let's see here. Okay. Let's see. Let me just take another crack at this. The return on investment for big business units was 30%, and small business units was 10%. This is what they found. Okay, this was that data study that started at GE and then moved on eventually to the Boston Consulting Group. Okay, And why was this? They looked into this deeper and they tried to figure out why. Why are we seeing that? Companies that have 30% of the market or more, or what was it, that have, like 50% of the market, big, they had a 30% return on investment, whereas the small players had 10% return on investment, all things being equal, when you normalize it to the same size. Tracy Williams says, I'm typing mine. Good. I'm interested to hear. Now, they looked into it deeper, and this is what they found. First of all, number one thing, economies of scale. Okay, if you're producing lots, like the high volume of sales, volume of production, okay, you're going to get economies of scale in many things, including procurement, manufacturing, marketing, investment, and R&D, and other things. Okay, so also there's other things that happen. You get risk aversion by customers. In the mainframe business, I remember IBM talking about how in the 60s and 70s, they had this kind of slogan. It said, like, nobody ever got fired for buying IBM because they're the default supplier of that stuff. They were the safe choice, right? They're the gold standard. They're the ones that everyone knows because they're everywhere. If you went outside of IBM, maybe you invested in, other competitors, Sun Microsystems, and, all the other players in there, then you're going to a smaller player. Maybe there'd be some risk there for the person who made that decision. So customer behavior changes. Okay, basically we're talking about market power. Right? If you're the big player, there's other physical things you can do besides customer behavior. You can negotiate better deals. You have more negotiating power with your suppliers because you're the 800-pound gorilla. You're the one that's like selling most of the units in that industry. CPU industry, Intel versus AMD. For many years, Intel was taking advantage of this because they owned like 80% of the market or whatever it was. God. Okay, so if you are a big player, you have an advantage. All things being equal, you have an advantage for these reasons. And that's the second half of profitability. It allows you to lower your per unit costs from economies of scale. So the first half was quality, which allows you to charge higher prices. The second reason was market share, which allows you to lower your costs due to you see how good I am? Lower your costs due to economies of scale, which is the second half of profitability, right? And these things kind of combine. So those are the two most important factors in determining profitability. Now, market share, not too much you can do about that, other than you can decide to be a big fish in a small pond, or you could be a small fish in a big pond, right? This, whether you get into one business or another business. Okay, and what reason number two is saying, market share is saying that it's better to be a big fish in a small pond. You may have an advantage there. Okay, so that's true to an extent. But by far the biggest takeaway here is that quality, customer relative perceived quality, is the number one metric to determine if you're going to be profitable or not, and what your profitability is going to be, and what you should do to improve your profitability. The better you get at that score, ideally you become number one. That should be your goal. And I've tried to put this into practice over several businesses, in my career. And I mean, YouTube is another example of that. Like, something I don't talk about a lot is, I know a lot of YouTubers talk about being a YouTuber, like how to make videos and how to make good videos and all that. I don't really talk about that. Basically, I just extend this strategy to YouTube. Of all the videos out there, which is the best? Maybe on the same topic, and anything you can do to try and make a better video, better in the sense that your customers or potential viewers respond to it. That's the way to go, right? So I've just extended that to YouTube. Incidentally, I've done this across a lot of businesses. So that's where I want to leave this topic today. Hopefully that makes sense. If there's one takeaway, just as a recap, Number one, 3 factors that determine success. Number one is market. That's the most important. Your market has to be there. It has to be growing. If it's not there or it's shrinking, you might not want to get into it. Or if you're in that business, you've got some thinking to do. Second most important factor is your competitive advantage. Okay, that's not your decisions from this point. That's just the position you find yourself in. How much resources you have, how much knowledge you have, this starting point from where you are. Okay, the third most important factor is your strategy, any like how smart you are and what you're trying to do. Okay, it's only number 3. Everything you do is only factor number 3. Okay, and then of all the stuff you try and do, what's going to result in profitability? We talked about the 5 factors that affect profitability. We went into detail on the first 2. The first one is quality, in particular, customer relative perceived quality. And then factor number 2 was market share, which you can't really do too much about other than deciding what market to get into, right? And there you go. Hopefully that should be a good overview for people. I have another live stream coming up in 5 minutes. I just wanted to say one last thing. I had a Post-it note sitting on stuck to my monitor for a couple of weeks now. I didn't really have a place to talk about it. But something else that ties in with this series on leadership was in a company, a huge thing that I've noticed over my career is that decisions tend to be made only with local considerations in mind. They don't tend to be made according to, a sort of shared vision or a shared strategy, right? So if someone at the top says, we're going to build, a product, a car, and let's say the purpose of this car is to go fast, right? This is going to be our model. That's the speed demon, right? So operating under that manager, there will be different groups. There'll be the engine group. There'll be the body aerodynamics group. There will be the transmission, wheel, and tire group. There will be the safety and ergonomics group, whatever, these different groups. And they're all responsible for helping to design this new model of car. And the problem is that maybe the person at the top says this model car is going to be our speed demon. And the engine group takes that to heart. They sacrifice fuel economy to make this thing fast and powerful. Maybe the aerodynamics people also do the same. Maybe it's not a very pretty looking car. It's not very, sleek, but, it's fast. However, maybe the transmission and wheel group, they're facing a decision where maybe their existing design of transmission is pushed to its limit already, and they can't go any further to handle the power from the engine. So they have to make a decision. What are we going to do? Are we going to make a new design from the ground up? Or are we going to do something cheaper? Are we going to take our existing design, we're going to just tweak it a little bit, we're going to add a gear or add some cooling to it and, call it a day, right? Now, what they're supposed to be doing is they're supposed to be making that decision from the perspective of, speed comes first, right? We don't care about this thing lasting for 50 years. We care about speed. And it turns out that it's less work for them to just tweak the existing design. And what you get is something that doesn't prioritize speed. It prioritizes ease of design. They can get this design done in a week. They don't need another year to finish it, right? So it turns out that department makes the decision to do that. They prioritize something other than speed in their new design of this transmission. And unfortunately, that means that the car just can't go as fast as it should. It could have, but it's got a weak transmission in it, right? So that's an example of different groups making their decisions based on local considerations rather than a shared strategy that comes down from the top. And this leads to a ton of problems. And in most organizations I've worked in, they're struggling with this problem because it's not really being enforced, and it leads to bad results. So that's something that more managers should take into consideration. I talk about it more, but I'm out of time. Thank you for joining me on leadership. I'm going to be back in like a minute with the next live stream on how to get hired. Thanks for your attention. And just as a reminder, my course will be coming out in a week, hopefully. And there is a discount. If you buy 2 of my courses, you get the 3rd one for free. I will talk about more of that on the next live stream. Thank you. You guys are awesome. And I will see you soon. Take care. And thank you to Tracy. Have a great week. See you next Monday. Yes. Hello, everybody. Hello, and welcome to this new stream. I was just live like a minute ago, literally. Welcome to How to Get Hired. This is the live stream I do every week where I take questions from you guys and hopefully answer them, hopefully help you out with regard to anything career related. So job interviews, how to find a job, anything like that. How to do your resume, how to answer job interview questions, how to fill in job applications, how to negotiate salary or compensation, all that kind of stuff. So if you're here, and I know that 9 of you guys are here, thank you for joining me. Get in the chat. If you have your questions, type them into the chat box and I will see them and I'll hopefully be able to get you some answers. That's what this is for. Yeah, and while we're waiting for questions, I just want to reiterate something I said on my last live stream, if you didn't catch it, on leadership, was the big announcement for me today, from my perspective, is that I do have a new course coming out, and that is this thing right over here. If I can follow my finger here, my Write Like a Professional course. If you want to develop the written communication skills of an executive, this is for you. If you're looking to improve your written communication skills, and not seem so unprofessional, make a very good impression on others. This will help you in your conventional career. If you're looking to get promoted, you're looking to get promoted into a managerial position. If that's kind of something you are hoping to have happen, this is for you. If you are just wanting to clean up your writing and do better, say in school, if you are a student and you're wanting to write papers and things that are clearer, and make you more highly regarded because of it, this course is for you. Now, the big announcement is that it's my 3rd course. Okay, I already have 2 existing courses out. My Get Hired course, okay, which is quite popular, and my $100 MBA course. Those are already been out for a while, and I've gotten a great response from those. Now, several people ask me, can I buy all 3 and is there a discount? The answer is yes, there is. I've never given a discount before. I've never given like any coupons or a price reduction of any kind, but there will be for this. And that is if you buy or have bought already 2 of my courses, you get the 3rd one for free. What that means is if you have bought and paid for 2 courses, drop me an email. And if you go and register for the 3rd course, I will enroll you in that course for free. Okay, so that's what's going to happen. The 3rd course is not quite out yet. I was hoping to have it, the website live today, but it is not because I've been under the weather. But hopefully in 1 week it will be out and you will be able to register for that and start taking it. And in addition, there's going to be, for the first time ever, there's going to be a premium pricing where you get 25% off for the first month it's available, because I'm still putting up the classes. So not all of them are quite there yet. Not all the videos are there yet, but they will be up in a month. And so for those of you who register for the course now, you get 25% off, $25 off. Okay, so that's where we are. So let's talk about careers and hiring. And I've got a video coming out tomorrow. I hope you guys will like it. It's called How to Introduce Yourself. Very popular topic. But yeah, let's talk about job interviews and jobs in general. it can be quite a challenge, to be between jobs and to find another job. And, a lot of people are in that place right now, and I know how psychologically stressful it can be. It's a terrible feeling sometimes. For some people, like I've mentioned before, this is like a sort of reality experience where they throw you into the deep end, and this is the real world, and you don't know what to do. You don't know what you can do. Should I apply for online jobs? Should I do other things? Should I talk to people I know and go the networking route? Or should I try a different type of networking? Should I show up and apply in person, or should I do informational interviews? There's all kinds of different things you can do. And a lot of people don't know what to do, and they don't know how to go about doing it. Especially for a lot of young people, the number one thing, the default method for a lot of people is simply to apply for jobs online. That's what they see. That's kind of the most obvious thing that they see. So unfortunately, a lot of people conclude that that's the way to get a job, and it's the only way to get a job. And that's a no to both questions. It is not the best way to get a job. It's actually one of the worst ways to get a job. And there are many other things you can do besides apply for jobs online. And the people that go outside of that tend to get rewarded because, number one, they're not up against such stiff competition. Usually, when you apply for a job online, your application goes in with lots of other people. Sometimes it's hundreds of people. So statistically, you have like maybe 1% chance of getting the job. But in addition to that, the best jobs, the jobs that are like highly competitive, that are highly desirable because they're really good, a lot of times they never get posted because they don't need to get posted, because the employer doesn't have to look very far to find candidates that want that job. So those jobs tend to not be posted because all the boss has to do is sort of ask their own employees, who should, is there any candidate that you have in mind? Do you know of anyone who would be interested in this? And usually the answer is yes. Or the boss knows some candidates off the top of their head, people they've had dealings with, people they know of, people that have approached them that, they could just ask and say, well, do you want to come in for an interview? We might have something here. Let me know if you're interested, right? So the fact that you don't have to post the job is a considerable advantage to a lot of employers, a lot of hiring managers, because it's much less work for them, and it's also a hell of a lot cheaper when you consider the cost of hiring an employee. Okay, the fact that you've got to post the job, you've got to advertise it, okay, you've got to promote it, you've got to filter a ton of applications, because these are, after all, people you don't know. You don't know if you're getting, psychopaths or axe murderers or, fraudsters, or you don't know who these people are. So you've got to do a lot of background checks and a lot of things like this. That's all very expensive to do, especially if you got a lot of applicants, right? So it's always best if you just happen to know already some forthright people that check out, that you have personal recommendations from, either you know them personally or your employees know them, or you do business with somebody who recommends them to you. That kind of personal recommendation is very, very powerful, right? So that's why those types of jobs, they have an advantage. And if you're not tapping those, you really should consider doing it. The odds of getting hired quicker will go up tremendously, and getting a much better job at the end of the day will go up considerably. And I am coming from the perspective of a technical, detail-minded introvert, and I'm telling you that you can do this too. Okay, you don't need to be some kind of social butterfly or slimy salesman type person to do this. Anybody can do this. I talk about that in my course, but I've also talked about it on my YouTube channel. There's many ways to do this. Okay, we have a comment coming in. I see it on the screen. I don't see it in my feed yet. Hopefully it'll show up there soon, but I'll just read it right off the screen. It says, this is from Vipul, if I'm saying that right. I'm sure I'm not. I apologize. Hey, lots of love from India. I am in Han market right now, and every time I get interviewed, I have to answer why left every job, and I don't have appropriate answers. I make up things, not helping. Okay, so I have to answer why I let every job. So I assume you mean why you left your previous jobs. That's a common job interview question where they say, why did you leave your last job? Right? I've done a video on that, but let's get into the answer. Okay, standard question. Now, I'll give you the short version right up front, okay? If somebody asks you this question, why do you leave your last job? You just say, I'm ready to do more. Okay, that's in a nutshell, that's your answer. Now, you can elaborate, okay? But you can say, I'm ready to do more. Now, if you were to ask a recruiter, how should I answer this question? Most recruiters will say the standard thing that I've heard, which is they'll say, let's pretend that the last job you had, you were fired, okay, or something bad happened, like maybe your term came to an end, or something like that. They will say, just be honest, right? Say you were fired, and say what you learned, right? That's what a recruiter will tell you is the best answer, okay? I say, that's BS. Do not say that, because what's going to normally happen is the reason why recruiters in particular ask you this question is not because they're trying to see what's great about you. Okay? They're asking these types of questions to find red flags. What's wrong with this person? Is there a reason why we should not hire them, that, or something kind of iffy about them that, we don't know. It could be a problem. We don't know. But to be on the safe side, let's not hire them, right? Because it turns them into a riskier candidate, right? That's the reason that they're asking most job interview questions. That's a recruiter's job. They're there to find red flags. They are actually not equipped to really know if you're going to be a great employee or just a good employee. That's outside their scope, because usually recruiters don't know the job itself. Okay, a recruiter is trained in HR. They might be hiring a mechanic to work in a garage, right? Now, the recruiter doesn't know anything about being a mechanic, what tools you use or what techniques. They can't tell a good mechanic from a bad mechanic. But what they can do is they can tell someone who has a history of quitting their job or getting fired. They know that if you can uncover that, that's probably going to be a risky candidate you don't want to hire. So that's why they're asking questions like this, okay? So in a perfect world, it would be lovely if you could just be honest, admit your faults, admit your mistakes, declare things about yourself that are not particularly flattering, and be honest about it, and say what you learned, and say how it makes you a better employee now because you learned the value of this, whatever. It would be lovely if you could do that. Unfortunately, most recruiters, they're very petty, and once they hear that you've been fired, it's over. You're eliminated right there and then, okay? They can continue the interview and, make it pleasant and everything, but really they've eliminated you, okay? So, number one, don't ever say anything bad about yourself in a job interview. So if you got fired, that's something bad about you. That suggests that there's something wrong with you. You're not a good employee, whatever. Also, never say anything bad about anyone, like even a previous employer or a previous boss. Maybe you were fired, but you didn't do anything wrong. The boss was just crazy, or they were a jackass, they were a jerk, and they were out to lunch, and they couldn't recognize a talented employee when they saw one. Or they treated you really poorly, and you did what any normal, sane person would do, and you left or something, but they claim they fired you. Okay? So the story doesn't matter. Don't badmouth yourself. Don't badmouth a previous employer or anyone else, okay? Because it makes you look bad. If you say, yeah, my previous boss was a jerk, you know what their problem was? They didn't know what the hell they were doing, and they treated all their employees really bad. What you're doing is you're sending a signal that you're the type of employee that doesn't get along with their boss. And it suggests that if they were to hire you here, because they don't know you, they don't know what the deal is, they don't know what really went on. It suggests that if they were to hire you here, you would not get along with your boss here, right? That's the message they're receiving, the recruiter is receiving. Okay, so the best thing to do is to only say positive things, okay? Another factor for this is that, I'm just going to beat this to death, by the way. If feel free to stop me and ask me more questions. But another factor that's happening here is that, there's so many sides to this. If they ask you a question, just remember, you don't automatically have to give them full and complete information about what they're asking about. Like, for example, if you went to a job interview and the recruiter said, okay, thank you for coming down. Now, what's your name? Okay, excellent. What's your contact information? Okay, excellent. Okay. What's your credit card number? Right? You don't have to answer that, right? It isn't a deposition. You're not in a court of law, right? If they say, what, like they were trying to get to the dirt on you and they say what's your biggest flaw, right? What's a reason why we wouldn't hire you? Because nobody's perfect. We've all got stuff that we've done in our past that maybe we're not proud of. Maybe we failed at something. Maybe we didn't do as good a job as somebody else might have done in some situation. Maybe, I don't know, there's going to be something. So they're going to probably zero in on something like that. They're going to ask you about it. You don't have to supply them with full and complete information. So if they're asking you about negative things, like, why did you leave your last job? Obviously, something didn't work for you, right? Either the job ended or you decided to leave because, maybe it wasn't good in some way, or they decided you should leave and they laid you off or they fired you. There's going to be something less than favorable there in that story, right? You don't have to give it to them. Because if they don't know who you are and all they know about you is that you were fired from your last job, already you look like a bad candidate, right? You see what's happening there? It's about perception. So that's why it's best to say, I was just ready to do more. I wanted to work on my, customer service skills. I wanted to interact more with people. That's why I'm here, because as I understand it, this job allows me to interact more with people. Right? The other thing is that you're not at a job interview to talk for 20 minutes about your last job. You know what I mean? They don't care about your last job. They care about whether you're a fit for this job. So the thing you should do at a job interview, if you're going to tell them stuff and you might only have a few minutes total to tell them about you, is you want to spend that time giving them reasons to hire you, saying what you're great at, what you know, what you've done, showing that you know your stuff, showing that you're super friendly and easy to deal with. You don't want to spend their time telling them all, defending yourself about something that happened in your past. And that's all they get to hear about you, right? So when you say, I'm ready to do more, it's short. It gets off this question quickly. And you didn't say anything negative about yourself or anyone else. It sort of ticks several boxes there. Okay? The more you can take that question and turn it into talking about this job instead of your last job, the better. I was ready to do more. I was ready to, expand my skills when it comes to, managing financials. That's something I hadn't really done really, full time in the past. And I'd like to do that more. That's why I've applied to this job. That's why I want to be a bookkeeper, whatever it is. And really build on that because, I just like that type of activity. And my old job, it wasn't really doing too much of that. Whereas this job here is doing it. And that's why I'm here. You see how I'm trying to turn it into talking about this job? Fran says, love that answer. I'm ready to do more. Good. I'm glad that works. My feed is not working for some reason. I'm just reading these off the screen. Vipul says, sorry for the spelling mistakes. Your reply is helpful. Got it. Okay, good. Good. I think you said that 5 minutes ago. And then I went on for another 5 minutes. if not longer. But that was a good question. Yes, as a reminder, if you have questions about anything related to getting a job, anything related to careers in general, applying for jobs, negotiating salary, or the wonderful world of networking, I find that really exciting to talk about. Networking is the way to get a job. And contrary to what many people might think, networking is not like it doesn't require you to know a ton of people. Networking is basically you reaching out to people. Okay, reaching out to people that you don't know, right? That's the idea. That's what 90% of people do. Like when you get a job through networking, 90% of it involves that. It doesn't involve going through a previous relationship. It involves making a new relationship proactively. You can reach out to any company, to any organization, whether they have posted a job or not. A lot of times it's good to do it if they haven't posted a job, because a lot of good managers are always on the lookout for potentially really good employees, people that show a lot of potential. And for example, something that they used to say, I haven't heard people say this recently, but I'm sure they still do, that volunteer experience is actually really prized on a resume. When people read a resume, they like to see like volunteer activity because it says certain things about you, right? Why would you do volunteer work? You're not getting paid for it, so why would you do it? Well, it's obviously because you enjoy it. You're getting something out of it other than money, right? You're really into doing that kind of work. You enjoy it. That's what it signals, right? Some people, when they're not at work, they're not getting paid. They're just at home, sitting on their butt watching TV or something, or playing video games. Other people, when they're not working, they're not at home. They volunteer, at a soup kitchen or helping poor people or, doing something, right? What does it say about those people? They obviously enjoy that type of activity, right? Just because you do a job doesn't necessarily mean you enjoy it, right? And a lot of people don't enjoy their jobs, but they do it because they get paid, right? It's a necessary evil. But volunteer work, you do it because, you enjoy it to some degree, right? So if you reach out to an organization, okay, that has potential to employ you, let's say you're a mechanic and you reach out to a garage, okay, it's in your hometown. And you send a message to the boss and you just say, hey, I think, you guys run one of the most respected garages in the city. It looks like you guys are doing a fantastic job. And from there, you can go many ways. One option is to say, if ever you're looking for a mechanic, please let me know because I'd love to work for you. Another direction is to say, I'd love to get your expert opinion on, the auto repair industry. If you ever have 30 minutes, you could spare me. I'd love to sit down with you and hear what your opinion is on some of the issues in the automotive industry right now. Things like this, right? Now, maybe that company hasn't posted a job, but that they're always looking. There's always a turnover of employees, right? So if they're not looking now, they will probably be looking soon. And the boss might always be on the lookout for talented mechanics, let's say, to work in their garage. So if you approach them, right? Why are you doing this? You're doing it because, you obviously like them. There's no incentive in it otherwise. And that signals some really great things about you. Okay. This writing is very small, so I apologize, but it's Mickey Holly says, thanks for all you do. You're absolutely welcome, Mickey. Thank you for being here. Vipul is here. I got rejected many times for expectation about salary. In India, they ask previous salary and then we can negotiate salary. I just graduated and have 2 years of experience. I know I'm underpaid. Okay, Vipul, yes, I've heard that many, many times. I know in India that they have some common practices there where they require you to submit like previous paychecks and pay stubs, and they want the salary verification before they even talk to you, and like all this kind of stuff. Everything I say about networking, however, still applies. Okay. And the key is that you don't network with recruiters. Like, that's the last thing you do. You network with the boss, and preferably the big boss. Right. And I know what I'm talking about here, by the way. Whenever I say this stuff, I always get people that challenge me for whatever reason. It's like, I've built a consulting business doing this. I networked with CEOs, with tons of CEOs that I didn't know previously. But I went and I did informational interviews. I went and I reached out to a lot of them, and I made stuff happen. It's really not that hard. Not many people do this. So, it's really kind of, you're elevating yourself above the crowd by like doing this kind of thing. Pearl is here. Pearl says, hello, Bill. I hope you're doing great. I am doing great. Thanks. Thank you, Pearl. I'm just getting over a cold/flu, but otherwise I'm doing really well. And Fran says, oh my, that practice in India, what a challenge to get ahead. Yeah, well, that's everywhere. Look, my understanding, and I could be wrong. I don't know this. It's not written in stone. It's not written in my blood, on a tablet somewhere. So I could be wrong about this, but I've gotten the impression from India that a lot of those HR practices that are done by recruiters, it's like, once again, that's just the recruiters. You go to a manager, you go to a big, a second level manager or higher, or an executive, it's possible to short circuit that, like it is everywhere, like it is here. It's universal, right? When they're posting a job that gets 1,000 applicants, right? 1,000 people send in their resume or their job application. They're going to process that one way. But when you get a candidate who goes to a company that has potential to hire them, but doesn't apply to a posted job, maybe that company doesn't have a job posted right at the moment, but they go to an executive, they send the executive a message. The message is very professional, very clear. And they say, I'd love to get an informational interview. I'd love to get your expert opinion on this industry. If you could spare me 30 minutes of your time, let me know. Have a great day. That's it. And the executive says, yeah, I don't really know who this person is, but, they sound very professional. It doesn't sound fishy. There's no red flags. They just want to talk to me, ask me about the industry. Sure. It's part of an executive's job to take unsolicited queries from the public. You don't know this person. Could be a potential business partner. Could be a potential vendor. It could be a government regulator. It could be the press. You don't know. So a lot of people will say yes. And I'm speaking from experience. I've done hundreds of informational interviews. I've done probably 100 informational interviews with CEOs, just CEOs in my time. I've been a CEO of a small company, and you go in there, and as long as you are friendly and professional, and you ask them a few questions, it's a great learning opportunity. And then usually ends with you saying, they give you a business card or something. You say like, hey, if ever I have a follow-up question, would it be okay if I contacted you? Would that be okay? Most of the time they'll say yes. You got a contact in high places there. And then lo and behold, you contact them 2 weeks later and you say, I see you guys just posted a job deep down in the company here. Would it make sense for me to apply for it? What do you think? And most of the time they'll probably say, sure, yeah, no problem. I don't see any reason why you wouldn't. You say, okay, great. And next thing you know, you're applying to the recruiter and you're saying, oh, I was in the CEO's office or the executive's office, vice president, whatever division. I was in their office 2 weeks ago. They recommended that I apply for this. Right? Carries a lot of weight. I mean, there's all kinds of ways to do it. But learning some of these techniques helps. Anyway, the reason I'm saying this is not to make anybody feel bad if you're not doing this stuff. It's simply to make you aware that there's many ways of getting a job and many things that you can do, especially if you're an introvert. I'm an introvert and I can do this stuff. I learned many years ago, and it's actually not nearly as hard as you might think it is. If you can do a job interview, you can certainly do this. Anyway, I got some weird things going on with my feed. I got some questions over here on my feed. I got different questions up on the screen. Let's see if we can sort this out. Elevation, I think that says. I'm reading the little tiny green writing. Elevation says, what would you do if your boss said that he wanted to hit you? Oh, my God. That's what my boss told me. Well, that's not good. Now, I don't know what country you're in. I don't know what the context is. But I'm going to assume, okay, maybe this is not the case for you. I'm going to assume you're in the West, you're in the EU, or you're in North America. But the standard practice there is that qualifies as harassment, okay, or the threat of physical violence in the workplace. There are laws about that in the EU and in North America. So that kind of informs you of what to do. Number one, you get out of physical harm's way, okay? So you basically don't provoke the person, you back away, and then leave the room, right? If you think it's going to come to blows and you don't want a fist fight with this person, you know what I mean? That's number one priority. Number two is that's actually violating laws. If somebody's threatened you with physical violence, and if they said literally what you wrote there, that would constitute a physical threat of violence, saying, I'd like to hit you in the face, or, anything like that, that's a threat of physical violence. So basically, a lot of companies have internal rules about that and policies and things you do. But in addition to that, what really matters and carries weight is that there are laws in that country that prevent that. Workers have rights, and depending on what country you're in and what region you're in, there will be an employment standards division of the government. They'll have a phone number. They'll have all their rules up on their website. You can read the law, and you can make an anonymous call to them and ask them about the rules, ask them what they recommend you do, and you can even blow the whistle on them if you want it to go that far. I wouldn't necessarily recommend that if it was like one time and maybe someone was having a bad day. I don't know. But you can get informed at least and decide what to do from that point on. Okay, hopefully that makes sense. And hopefully this is not a horrible situation you're in, Elevation. That has potential to be really bad. And don't do anything to really provoke people too, right? It's always best to have some awareness of, what might set people off if, that'll make your life a bit easier. That's nothing in the legal sense, of course, but it just, on a human level, it just helps, right? Something I have seen, there's something in the business culture that I have seen. I don't know where this comes from. I don't know where it started, if anywhere, but I know in America, in the United States of America, there are people that really embody this. But, the idea that if you apologize, it is an admission of guilt, therefore you can't apologize. I don't know. I don't live in the United States. I know it's a very litigious society, but in my experience, if you've made a mistake, you just say, I apologize. That was me. That was on me. I'll do my best to make sure that never happens again. That kind of stuff. Like if someone's upset over something like that. But someone who is screwed up, but then can't admit it for whatever reason, I think that also provokes people. So I'm not sure if that's a factor here, but if it is, that's something I've seen that really doesn't help. I know they do that sometimes in customer service, like you can make a complaint, I got an issue with this product, whatever, and they can never admit that, they're at fault. They or their company is at fault for anything. So it kind of makes it impossible to really get help, right? If there's no problem, according to them, and there never has been, and there never will be, right? I know that can be very frustrating. Yeah, so there you go. anyway, get in the chat. Let me know if you guys have any questions. There's 7 people here. We don't have as many people here because it's early in the morning. I've had to move my live streams because of my schedule. There's some work I have to do that I have to be up in the mornings, early in the mornings for. And so I've kind of moved my live streams on Mondays along with that. But if you have any questions, get in the chat. Let me know, or forever hold your peace. Or else I have to fill dead air for a little while, and you don't want to see me do that. Elevation says, thanks, I live in Norway. Okay, well, Norway, I mean, you guys are doing well. Adrian apparently thinks I am handsome. Adrian, I guess that's good, but you must not have seen a lot of people if that's what you think. But thank you. AESRI says, if my first experience took place in online platforms complying with tasks related to my field, which is engineering, does it matter to include this information in my resume to apply for a formal job? I don't think so. I mean, it would depend on the context, but if you've done something, I don't think it matters if somebody told you to do it remotely or they told you in person, you still did it. You know what I'm saying? What matters is that you can do that thing. You have that skill, you have that accomplishment, you have that capability. So I don't think you necessarily have to disclose that. Now, if you want to, like usually the conventional wisdom is to not say anything negative about yourself in the initial sort of communication, right? So if we're talking about a resume and you think that it may affect your chances in some way, I would leave it off your resume as long as it's not being super dishonest. Like I don't know the context, but all things being equal, it doesn't sound like it's that big of a deal. So I would leave it off your resume. Just say, I have this capability. I've done this thing, because that's accurate. Now, in a job interview, if they then ask you questions about it, they want to go a bit deeper. Okay. And they say, under what circumstances did you do this or something? Then you can maybe give them more information and say, well, it was remotely. They told me to do this remotely and I did it. You know what I mean? Like, but at least that way you get the interview, you know what I mean? And then you have a chance to downplay it and still show them that although it was remote, it was still every bit as applicable, right? I mean, that's how I would handle it, not really knowing the details about this. That applies to most things. If you think it's going to hurt you, there's always a desire to disclose something fully because, you think that maybe they could want more information about it. And once they discover that there's this detail, they might not like it. So I want to avoid them wasting my time by disclosing that at the outset, right? There's a temptation that some people feel to do this. The problem is that what you're actually engaged in here is the sales process. You're selling yourself, okay? And that harms you in a big way, because maybe it turns out that this little detail is actually not this huge big deal that you think it might be. They don't mind that much, Now, if they're looking at 1,000 resumes and they're looking for like any reason to eliminate the candidate because they got 1,000 resumes to go through, they look at yours and you say, "Oh, I did this work remotely." They go, remote. Okay, that's not ideal, so eliminated. But if you hadn't said that on your resume, you just said, "I've done this work," maybe they'd have given you the interview. And when you get to the interview, they see that you're professional, you're friendly, you're a good communicator, you have a good rapport with them, and maybe they ask you about this work you did, and you say, "Well, they gave me the instructions remotely, and I did it, but it was okay because I did it." Maybe at that point they think, "Yeah, it was remote, but you know what? That doesn't matter. This person seems to know their stuff. I wouldn't mind working with them." And because I've met them and because I see how professional they are and how awesome they are, I'm going to hire them. Right? It also allows you to explain the detail. So if there's a story behind it or some mitigating circumstances, you can explain that, right? So maybe the generally the way this goes is try to resist the temptation to like say bad things about yourself or put things on there that make you look bad or have potential to make you look bad, right? You know, get the interview. Always think about like, how do I get to the next step? Don't think about the end. Think about the next step. When you submit a resume or an application, the next step is to get an interview. So how do I get the interview? And then when you're at the interview, you focus on how do I get the offer, right? Don't put the cart before the horse. Hopefully that makes sense. But that's a good question. So, I'll give it another 30 seconds if we get more questions. Not a lot of questions coming in. I'll give another 30 seconds or so. If I don't get any more questions, I will be signing off. AESRI says, got it. Thanks. You're welcome. 18, is that, or 1B? I can't really see. Says, what would you recommend to do to find out what I want? I graduated in psychology, but I'm very unsure about a specific position that I want to do. Recruiters tell me that that's what I need to know. Oh, lovely. Okay. I'm going to make the assumption from that question that you are young. I don't know if you are or not, but that's something that maybe a young person coming out of school might be wondering. This kind of maybe falls under the category of life advice. I don't know if it does. I'm not good at giving out life advice. But what I'll tell you is that in my experience, you don't know what you want and you won't know. How are you supposed to know what you want to do if you've never done anything or you've never seen what's out there? The best thing to do is to get exposure to what's there and then decide, do you like this or not, right? So if you're looking for, say, a job, which is what I assume, where I assume this is going, like when you say, what do you want to do? I'm assuming you're talking employment, okay? In that capacity, not as opposed to say, I want to travel the world or write a novel or something. But in terms of employment, how are you supposed to know? There are so many more things out there to do in the world of employment than you can possibly imagine. I have seen just a tiny fraction of all the things that are out there. I've worked across 5 industries in my career so far. And, I haven't seen I've just seen a tiny fraction of what's out there. There are so many things out there. And the other thing that I've found personally, I know a lot of other people have found this too, is that it kind of doesn't matter too much what the actual work is if you work with great people or you work with really bad people, right? Like really bad people will ruin a dream job and really great people will make a crappy job seem awesome. I've experienced a bit of that in my life. I think a lot of other people have too. You guys that are here, I mean, if you're watching, if you want to back me up on this or challenge what I'm saying, but that's what I found. I found myself being assigned really mundane work and not minding it because I got to work with some great people. And the converse of that too. I've been assigned things that I really wanted to go for and I went for and I got, and then I found it was horrible. Not because of the work. Well, sometimes because of the work. You think the work is going to be of a certain nature and then you get there and you discover it's really, you spend all your time doing this aspect of it, which is not great. And you have it ruined by having to deal with some really nasty people. So how are you supposed to know? There's no way to know. You don't know what is out there. So the best thing to do is take your best guess and just jump in. And if you don't like it, you can jump out, right? Now, what a lot of people find is they want to go for something and then they find that, for whatever reason, it's not possible for me to do that. Either nobody's hiring in that area, or they're not paying very well, or some other issue. In order to do that, you have to have this prerequisite that you don't have, that you didn't know about, okay? 1-8 says, I'm 24 with a master's degree. I did many jobs that are unrelated to my studies, but it is so hard to find any qualified job because I applied to random positions since 5 months not finding a job. Okay. Here's what you do. Okay. I've shown this before, but this is very, very useful. Okay. If you just bear with me for a second here. Here's something you can do. Okay. If you tried this, and I apologize if people have seen me do this before, but where do you live? Let's pretend, I don't know. Let's pick a city at random. What's a city I've never looked up before? Have I ever looked up Billings, Montana? I don't think I have. Let's pretend that you live in Billings, Montana. Okay. So I go to Billings, Montana, and then I go to maps up here on Google. Okay. Right? Now, you didn't say what your master's degree was in. Let's zoom in. Okay, this is Billings, Montana. Billings, Montana is not a very big place. Where did my search box go? Here it is. Okay, so I'm in Billings, Montana. I'm looking at a plan of it. Now, I'm going to go back to the chat here. What is your profession? Or somebody name me a profession. Fran, now this is Fran. Fran is saying, I was just hired in a retail position I was recently created. I've been doing tasks that are not even on the job description. Retail. Let's say, I'm just looking for an idea to demonstrate this. Okay, so you're in Billings, Montana, and you want to work in retail. Maybe that's too general. Let's do something different. How about, I don't know, leather retail? How about that? Let's say that's what you want to do. Okay, now it's zoomed in for some reason, but let's zoom back out. Okay. So I typed in leather retail looking at Billings, Montana. Now, two things came up. Montana leather, okay, and Buckaroo businesses, whatever that is. Let's go to Montana Leather Company, okay? So let's say you have a background in leather retail. That's pretty specialized, I imagine, okay? Especially for a small place like Billings, Montana. Now, here's a place that has potential to hire you, okay? They do leather retail, Montana Leather, okay? You got the name of the place, you got its physical location, so you know if it's close to you. So if you want to commute, you're not going to apply for a job at a place where you're going to commute like 200 miles to or something, right? So you could look at the places around you, okay? But I've got this company, Montana Leather Company, okay? Now what I do is I go to LinkedIn, and hopefully you have a LinkedIn account, okay? And you do a people search in Billings, Montana for this company, Montana Leather Company, okay? And what that'll show you is that'll show you some of the individuals inside this company, okay? Might show you the owner, the general manager, sales manager, people of that nature, right? And then what you're going to do, what you have the capability of doing is you have the capability of not only can you see their background and who they are, but you can message them. You can contact them directly. So you could say something like, hello, my name is X, my name is 18, or whatever your name is. Okay. And, I have a background in retail of leather products, and I know that you guys do some great work in that area. If ever you're looking for an amazing salesperson or manufacturing person or whatever it is you do, a warehouse person, whatever it is, let me know, because I'd love to work for you guys. Have a great day, right? And you don't just do this to that one business, okay? You repeat this process, okay? Let's forget about leather retail. Let's look at leather in general in Billings, Montana. Here's some more places. Sabe's Custom Leathers, Stone Mountain Leather Furniture, Montana Leather, that's the same place, Montana Leather Company. Okay. I mean, I don't know anything about the leather business. I mean, I'm sure there are other things that are ancillary to it. If we typed in retail, we'd probably get a whole ton of things going on. Okay. Like maybe, you've worked in leather retail, but, you could transport those skills to other types of retail. You could contact every single one of these things. Now, if I zoom in, okay, and I say search this area, you see you get different things popping up. As we go in, there's even more stuff, okay? Now, imagine each of these is a business, okay? Imagine if you then took each one of these and searched for them on LinkedIn and looked at the individuals, okay? There'd be more than one individual or more than one potential contact per business, okay? And started messaging all these people, right? Now, most of them are not going to respond because either they're not hiring or they don't really check their LinkedIn or they don't respond to, general queries or whatever. But some will. Some will just happen to be hiring right now. And, number one, they might be hiring, but you're elevating yourself above the crowd by doing this because not a lot of people are contacting them proactively and saying like, hey, I'm great at this. I love this. I know you guys are good, and I'd specifically like to work for you, right? So this is, like I could go on, but this is some of the activities you can do, okay? This is like the world of networking, okay? And this can create some opportunities for you. Now that's Billings, Montana. Billings, Montana, as I understand it, is very small. I've never been to Billings, Montana. I just heard the name, and I like the name. There was a book written a very long time ago called The Trumpet of the Swan by E.B. White. I've read it to my kids, and they talk about Billings, Montana. So that's stuck in my head. So if you're in a big city, I mean, you'll multiply this by 20, right? And that's just 2 searches we did, I think, 2 or 3 searches. Like if you do 10 searches, it just multiplies, like the amount of contacts, the amount of places that have opportunity to employ you. If retail is too low scale for you, having a master's degree, maybe in a big city, they'll be doing leather manufacturing. They'll be doing all kinds of things, that require some real high grade skills. So, whatever it is, you can use this method to open some doors. AESRI says, is a higher level of education important nowadays? For example, get a master's degree or even a PhD in a particular case of a tech job? Well, okay, the answer to that is yes and no. In some areas, of course it matters. I mean, can you be a medical doctor without any medical training? Of course not. That's ridiculous. You know what I'm saying? Like, can you design petroleum products, petrochemicals, if you have never taken a course on chemistry? Of course not. That's ridiculous. But, some other degrees or other certifications are really not in high demand, right? Now, here's what I suggest you do. I'm not going to show my LinkedIn live, but here's what you do, okay? Go to LinkedIn, okay? Hopefully you have a LinkedIn account. If you don't, get one. If you're looking for a job, having a LinkedIn account helps, okay? It's not the be all end all, but it is useful. They offer like a month free of the premium account. So if you haven't built up a huge network, don't worry, you can just get the free month. You don't pay anything at all. You just get the free month. Say you have the free trial and then cancel before the end of the month. You don't have to pay anything. And that gives you access to their search features. Okay, they're like search features outside of your network. And here's what you do. Look up the companies where you would like to work and look up the people in positions where you would want to work, like you would want to be in that position, in that job. And look at a ton of these. Look at like at least 50. Look at like 100 people in that position. And look at their LinkedIn profile, because the LinkedIn profile shows you basically their resume, right? So you can see like what their background is. And if all of them say PhD in this particular thing, then there's a high likelihood that you will need a PhD in that particular thing to work in that job. If 1 out of 100 people in that position in a tech company has a PhD in that thing, then it's a high likelihood that you don't need that PhD in that particular thing to work in that job, right? This is how you find out what, like in the real world, like what certifications or skills or experience you probably will likely need to be in a certain position if it's your ambition to be in that position. Okay, does that make sense? So, I don't have the answers for you in specific tech companies. And that's also going to vary by region, right? Like if you're in California and you're talking about a tech company, and what do you need to work in a certain position of a tech company of a certain size, you might find that everybody seems to have, a degree in engineering from Stanford or something. But, you go to, I don't know, some other place and you're not going to see that. You're going to see completely different qualifications, if any, right? So that's how you find out. That's how you get actual data on the specific thing that you're interested in doing. So if you want to be a project manager at a certain company, let's say it's a big company, let's say General Electric. I want to be a project manager at General Electric or similar companies. Like what would be a similar company to General Electric? I don't know. Like let's say it's in the aero engines division of General Electric. So Pratt & Whitney, they make aero engines, right? So you do a search for Pratt & Whitney, project manager, aero engines, and you look at all the individuals that pop up as the search results, and then you go and look at their profiles and see what they have. If they've all got master's degrees in engineering, chances are you got to have a master's degree in engineering to work in that role for that company or companies like it. Look up General Electric, aero engines, project manager, right? And see what they have. And if that doesn't give you the information you're looking for, like usually it should, but there's only limited things that a LinkedIn profile or a resume will tell you about somebody. It won't tell you, for example, their personality type, and it won't tell you if they've got friends in high places, right? If there's some politics going on, maybe that's how they got their job. Maybe that's the element you're missing. It won't tell you that stuff. To get that stuff, you would want to set up informational interviews with these people. Now that you've identified them on LinkedIn, you could send them a message and say, hi, I'm an aspiring engineer, whatever. I'd love to be able to get half an hour of your time to get your opinion on the engineering profession in the aero engines industry. Would you be able to spare me 30 minutes sometime? Just let me know if that's convenient. Something like that. A lot of people won't respond, but some people will. And then you'll have a couple of informational interviews lined up. These people are in the job you want. So it would be great to be able to ask them information about how did you get the job? What's important? What are important skills to have? Is personality important? If so, what personality traits should you have? What skills should you have? Things like this. That would be very valuable, right? So this is how you can get some of that information. It takes a little bit of effort, but it's really not rocket science. It's something that you could do from your home in like a couple of hours. You know what I mean? So anyway, hopefully that makes sense. It is. We've been here for an hour. It's getting close to the time where I got to wind this down. If anyone has any last minute questions, please ask them now. I will be signing off in a couple of minutes. Yeah. The other thing about higher education, is it valuable? There's so many factors to this. Like, for example, something that I have some kind of strong feelings on, obviously, with me selling a course on it, is MBA programs. MBAs are kind of like a Master's of Business Administration is kind of like mathematics. The information is out there. It's in books. You know what I mean? The fact that they ask you to pay them $50,000 or thereabouts to learn that information just boggles the mind to me. I don't understand it. I feel that a lot of those things are a real money grab. And as we go into the future, education is also getting more expensive. It's weird because education is now more accessible than it's ever been. you can find alternative education, companies that sell courses and things I'm not talking about me. I'm talking about established big companies that sell courses in like everything. Like you want to learn chemistry, you want to learn physics, you want to learn, computer programming, you want to learn like anything, and they sell like really good, detailed university grade courses, like for very cheap, The challenge, of course, is that it's not recognized by the existing educational establishments, right? And, on one hand, there's a reason why, because you don't really know how much somebody understands. And on the other hand, though, it kind of should be, in some capacity. But despite this wonderful world that's emerging of like all this alternative education, there's so much of it out there. The traditional brick and mortar universities and colleges and things are like charging increasingly more money for their education, which you would think like usually technology allows things to be done cheaper and quicker. So why are they like ramping up their prices? It seems like a complete disconnect. So an MBA, for example, Master's of Business Administration, if you have a bachelor degree, you can go and take an MBA. If you have a bachelor degree in anything, almost, you can take an MBA. It's strange that way. You can have a bachelor degree in accounting. You could have a bachelor degree in forensic anthropology. You could have a bachelor degree in dentistry. You could have a bachelor degree in construction. And then you can tack on an MBA and become like a master of business, right? But the thing is, MBA courses, a lot of the MBA programs, I'm not knocking them, but they get all their content from textbooks that are publicly available. You can go onto Amazon right now and buy the textbook. You can buy a slightly older version of it for $5 on Amazon. So why are you paying $50,000 for someone to read you the book in a monotone? You know what I mean? To like learn that material. So obviously I've got some strong feelings about this. That's why I created my course here, for example. Like, let's say you just want to start a business. You're not trying to impress anyone with your certificates or your credentials. Okay. You don't have a wall of certificates. I've got stuff all over the place. Right? You're not trying to impress anyone with this stuff. It doesn't matter. You're just trying to make money on your own. You want to start a business. You want to start something on your own. Nobody cares what certifications you have. What matters is the knowledge that you have, knowing what to do, right? So if that's your goal, you just want it for its intrinsic value. You just want to learn the knowledge. I maintain that you shouldn't pay $50,000 and have to do full, 2 years of your life full time. I maintain that you can just read the books on your own schedule, on your own terms. You maybe take longer than 2 years. Just have it sink in and, have it give you inspiration and stuff while you're learning it. And, if you're passionate about it, you'll be into it, you'll retain it. And then you can go out and do amazing things. You can start businesses that work, that make you a lot of money. You never have to work as an employee ever again. So that's why I created that course as an example, right? The $100 MBA. It's literally $100, and it's called a course, but really it's a program. I'm covering the same material that's in an entire MBA program at university, the like X many courses worth, right? The reason I can do that is because the information isn't coming from me. I'm basically giving you a reading list. I'm saying, here's the books that I recommend on each topic: marketing, accounting, strategy, operations, HR, like all the different, courses that you would be taking. These are books that are being used in MBA programs, places like Harvard Business School. They're using some of these books. You're just reading the book. You're not getting the professor to read it to you, and there are no assignments and all that kind of stuff. I don't care what you shouldn't care if I approve of how much you know. This is for you, right? So anyway, that's why I created that. It's a cheap alternative. For some people, it's a solution. If you're not trying to impress anyone with your credentials, you just want the knowledge. So that's kind of some of my opinions on education. I've gone back and taught in university as a teacher like in the last 5 years or so. I taught in business school at university. I've also taught in a college, business and HR. And I think it's overrated. It's too much money for what you get, and you could get a lot of it just from a book. You don't have to physically go to class if you're just interested in the material. Yes, it can enhance it. You can meet other people and all, yeah, but is it worth all that money just to like be forced to be in a classroom with a few other people? You can do that for free with other things in your hometown, right? So anyway, I'll get off my soapbox, but that's kind of some of my thoughts on that. Fran, cheers, first time here. Well, thank you, Fran. I hope you're getting something out of this. And I got to wrap this up soon, so I'll just take this one here. AESRI says, in my particular case, I wanted to apply for a job in renewable energy, but my bachelor degree was focused on power systems because I think of a master to meet some skills. I don't understand exactly what you mean by that. Was because I think of a master to meet some skills. Yeah, like I would apply to renewable energy companies. I would go the networking route, because if they see that you're really interested and you're awesome to deal with and you have some knowledge and some skills that could be useful, it is possible to short circuit like some of these hard requirements for certain jobs in certain situations. I would do that. I would try that before like going back to school for another 2-year degree or whatever your alternative plan is. I would try and like see if you can find something now. And once you get your foot in the door and you have some experience working in renewable energy, then I don't think you're going to need any more qualifications to get your next job in renewable energy. Now, why do I say this? I say this because I've been across 5 industries. For example, I became a project leader, which is like a boss of project managers. I got that job without any specific project manager training. I had a degree in engineering. I was a black belt at that time, I think it was just a black belt in Six Sigma at that time. And I think that was it when it came to education. But I had experience working in industry. And so I was on the executive management committee of that company, and I was the person in charge of projects. So like nowadays, if you apply for a project manager job, they want to see all these special, like they want you to have like, PMI, like the Project Management Institute. They want you to have like qualifications in Agile and Waterfall and like all these things. It's like, I didn't have any of that, right? I had some experience working in industry. And a lot of that stuff you can learn on the job. What you needed to know, you can learn on the job. And you can always take some training as you go. The company will train you if you say, I need this training for this. They'll say, sure. Okay. It's like, what? It's 2 days? Like, okay, fine. 2 days. Yeah. Well, no problem. You know what I mean? So like you get your foot in the door, experience trumps a lot of that stuff for a lot of industries, not for everything, but for a lot of industries, it does. So renewable energy is an emerging kind of thing still. So it's probably a bit of the Wild West at the beginning. There aren't really strict standards in place yet. So I'd say go for it. I would say try to get something. Go the networking route, try and talk to people in the industry. And if they see that you're passionate, that you've got a good head on your shoulders, you're professional, you're a pleasure to deal with, they can communicate with you, you're asking questions that show, you're on the ball and that you're interested in this stuff and you have some knowledge about it, it can open a lot of doors for you. And in that case, you're going through you're going into the same building, but just through a different door. You're not going into the door that leads to a recruiter, through a job application, through, software filters for your resume. You're not going in that door. You're going in the door where you talk to the boss and the boss decides like, hey, I think you might be a fit for something that we might have. You're going in through that door, right? So I would check that out. Anyway, I talk about that kind of stuff in my Get Hired course. If you want to go that route, if you do, there's a link in the description. If not, that's fine. I've got some free videos on my YouTube channel. Not quite as in depth as what's in my course, but the sooner you learn about this and the sooner you try stuff, the further you'll get. So it's, the best time to start is today. School isn't necessarily the answer to everything, especially in the world of employment. Experience is valued, and people like people that they like. You know what I mean? Like if you meet someone and they get along with you and they think you're awesome, they see that you've already got university education, you have a good head on your shoulders, good things can happen. And Fran says, that is awesome about the MBA course. Well, thank you. Yeah, several people have got, I think about 100 people have bought that. And I've only heard positive things, so that's really good. I don't teach all the material. Like you read the books. For each textbook, I have 2 videos. One that does an overview of the textbook. I go through the whole textbook with you, just like very briefly, saying which are the important parts that you should really pay attention to, in my opinion, which are the parts you could maybe skip over, in my opinion. And then I have another video that talks about that particular field of study, whether it's, marketing, operations, HR, finance, whatever it is. I have a video specifically that talks about that in general and what that industry is like and what are the important parts of it. So, and then you obtain the books. You can get them cheap, and you go through them at your own pace. It's about just getting the knowledge. This is access to the knowledge, and then you learn it yourself by reading the books and occasionally watching one of my videos. I agree on the school route unless you want to be an MD, DMD. Yeah, I mean, there's some professions that are actual professions, right? Medicine, engineering, there's like law, it's very formal, the education you have to get. And then in order to qualify and be licensed, there are certain things you just have to have, right? Medicine, law, engineering, you have to have, certain things. And, but for other professions, like if you want to be, for example, you want to be a mechanic. Okay. Now there's formal qualifications to be like a Red Seal mechanic or a journeyman mechanic. But beyond that, you can kind of, go into different areas and you can get experience on different equipment. And, so it's more kind of, you forge your own path through it, depending on what you're interested in, what you want to do. For people that get one of those sort of generic mid-level jobs, right? When I came out of university, I studied engineering, but I ended up going into my first career job. I was a supervisor of tradespeople fixing locomotives. I never thought that was a job while I was in university. I never envisioned that would even be a possibility for me. But I came out of school, and this particular company was hiring for that role, and they paid good money. And, they said, well, if you have an engineering degree, that qualifies you. And I was like, okay. So I applied for it. Next thing you know, I'm doing that. I'm not doing engineering. I'm not doing like design work. And then my career took a whole different path. So there's a lot of stuff out there that you don't know about. And it's a good thing because there's a lot more possibilities than you might be aware of. So anyway, that's what I'll say. That's where I'm going to end it today. Thank you for being here. You guys are awesome. I will be back next Monday with another episode or another session of this live stream, How to Get Hired. Until then, I wish you nothing but the best. If you are interested in learning business, check out my $100 MBA course. If you are between jobs and you're kind of lost and you don't know how to do things, how to get a job, what are the different methods for getting a job, where to start, how it all works, check out my Get Hired course. I put all my advice in one place with templates, like, in a logical order from beginning to end. The link is in the description if that is a route you want to go. I've sold several hundred of that course, and I've heard mainly a lot of overwhelmingly good things about it. I know it's helped a lot of people. And in a week or so, I will have the third course, my How to Write Like a Professional course. If you really want to improve your professional communication, this is the course to take. This draws from my experience, first of all, as a teacher in business school and university, some of the things I saw students doing that they could improve on, but also my experiences as an executive and as a CEO of a small company, what you need to have in place for your written communication. So if you are a professional or you're a supervisor or mid-level manager and you're wanting to climb the ladder, one of the things you have to have, it's a prerequisite, is you have to have great communication skills for any kind of executive level job or any kind of high mid-level job. You need to have your communication skills together. And there's a lot of talented people that don't get promoted because they just don't have the communication skills. They got the technical skills. And maybe they're very likable people, but they can't write, and they can't write professionally, and they can't represent their organization as well as their bosses would like, and that's what's stopping them. So if that's you and you want to improve on your skills, or if you're a student in university, you want to write really good papers, right, very clear, consider checking out that course. I will have some details hopefully by next week. So thank you very much. You guys are awesome, and I will see you soon. Take care.